Okay, so we're back for part two. Part one was 5 reasons why you probably should switch to mirrorless from DSLR. And in this video, we're going to talk about some reasons why maybe you don't want to. Now, I've already switched. I went from the 5D4 to the Canon R. Bill hasn't, so I'm going to ask him, why haven't you switched?
Okay, so there are a few reasons why. Now, to be honest, if I was a Canon shooter, I think I would have switched.
Okay.
But I'm not. I have a bag full of Nikon lenses. So I'm very heavily invested in the Nikon camera system. And I know we have friends that have just sold everything,
right,
and they start over. And they, whatever they can get for their gear, and then they just start rebuilding in like a Sony system or something else. I don't think I want to do that. I've invested a lot of money in these lenses. I like them. I have no issues with Nikon's image quality, the colors in the images. I like everything about shooting in a Nikon system. What I don't like is some of the features of their mirrorless cameras. Right. So for me, it's not the right time to switch yet. And I'm going to go through some of the reasons why, I don't really think it's time for me to switch.
Right.
Now,
so you have to be comfortable with the system that you're going into, especially
right,
like you said with the lenses that you have. Because cost is a factor. If you have to start from scratch, it's a huge, huge thing. If you're switching to mirrorless, but you're able to use your existing lenses, which I'm able to do with my Canon EF lenses, it's a lot easier to be able to move that.
And not only that, that camera was about $1,500 less than the camera
right,
you were coming for,
right,
but you're getting the same image quality.
Right, exact same, yep.
So for me, I shoot with a Nikon D750, and it's got 2 memory card slots. It has an articulating screen that goes up and down, but it doesn't swerve around like Eric's does for video, which we've been using. So I'm actually going to wait because it's not the right time for me. I want to, whatever, Nikon's put out the Z6 and the Z7, and they're very good cameras from what I understand. Our friends that have them love them, but it's not going to serve my purpose. I want to wait a little while till there's a dual memory card slot, because they don't have that yet, and I want a screen that can articulate out. In order for me to do that, I would have to switch systems,
right,
and that's a big expense.
Right.
And how much do you use that now, the screen sliding out to the side?
Almost all the time.
Right.
I use it if I'm not shooting with the camera to my eye, then I'm typically shooting. The reason I'm not shooting with it to my eye is because I'm shooting it in some other weird angle, which means I'm pulling the screen out, and now I'm using it in different places, and I'm actually getting more creative because I have this available to me, and I can shoot way down low, or I can shoot up high or off to some weird angle, or stick my arm through a fence and shoot somewhere over there and be able to see what I'm doing.
So you've always had good autofocus for video, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Canon's has always been great, and we both use the Canon M50 for video because of the autofocus. It's very good. It has the flip-out screen, and we don't have to worry. Nikon, which is the system that I use, the autofocus for video is terrible. Now, if you shoot Sony, their autofocus is good for video. But the Nikon, and from what I understand, Panasonic's autofocus is not great for video. They have the best video features, but not great autofocus. So I'm not really well-versed in the other systems. Let's say I wanted to go into Nikon's mirrorless right now. They do have better autofocus, and it would actually work for me, but they didn't put a flip-out screen onto the camera.
Right.
So now I'm saying to myself, well, I need that if I'm going to shoot video, especially for these types of videos. And it's something that is actually stopping me and making me wait for the next camera and hoping that they come out with it.
Right. Yeah, so that's really part of the problem too, is maybe it's not only not the right system, but not the right time yet. If you're not ready, if you're ready for a camera now, but you need all the features that you're used to, and you need everything to be, working the way that you need it to be, maybe the system you need to get into isn't ready for that yet. So if you need a new camera, switching to mirrorless might not be the right thing if that system isn't ready for you.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So anytime we do any kind of paid work or something, whatever it is, I always shoot with 2 memory cards. You almost have to.
Right.
You have to be able to back up your work.
Right.
Now, this camera doesn't have
Right.
2 memory cards. So
Right.
if you were getting hired to shoot whatever,
Right.
whatever it is you're going to shoot, would you take this or would you use your 5D4?
I would probably, for a paid gig, I would probably still use the 5D4 for that.
Right. So so that's an issue. If you are if you're a professional photographer, or you think you want to be, and you want to buy into a mirrorless system, I think Sony is the only one that has a full frame mirrorless camera with 2 memory card slots. And I know people say it's not a big deal. They use these special cards that don't break and blah, blah, blah. But if it does, you'll be sorry.
Right.
So if you have the option, like I would not get rid of my D750 even if I bought a mirrorless camera that only had one memory card slot, just for that reason, just in case I had to use it for a paid gig or whatever it was, I want the backup.
And even with this, I was away on vacation for a week last week, and I, for the first time ever, took my laptop with me. This way, every night or whenever I got back to the hotel room, I can back up my entire memory card, all the images I've had that day, just in the slight chance that you're going to lose something. It's a slight chance, but if you lose it, it's gone.
And we always talk about this, and because it's actually happened to Eric, and I'm so afraid it's going to happen to me, because I can't imagine being somewhere or doing some work. I don't know how I would explain that to a client or something, so it's something that's important to us. If that's important to you, you might want to wait or buy into the Sony system then.
Right. So another thing about the mirrorless, especially the Canon full-frame mirrorless, is that it's brand new. This camera's less than a year old, and the system around it really hasn't fully developed yet. So there are only a handful of RF mount lenses that are even available right now.
And they're super expensive.
Right, and they're super expensive. So if you were starting a new system and you were looking to add lenses to it, you really can't add many RF lenses to it. You'd really still be buying EF lenses for the DSLR system and using an adapter, which is okay, but if you're going to buy into a system totally and you're going to do it from scratch, you really want lenses that are native to that system. If you're going to be, switching your EF lenses to RF lenses, there's only a couple available, and like Bill said, they're really expensive right now.
Yeah, so, and like I said, I like my lenses. I'm not looking to change my lenses. I'm looking for some of the features that Eric mentioned in our other video, the autofocus and the live exposure. Those are the features that I think I would enjoy, and the lenses are fine for me. So I'm just looking for some of the features that the body is missing that I think are important to me, and that's why I'm going to wait. But if you don't have any lenses yet and you're going to buy a mirrorless camera, you may have to check the prices before you start getting into this, because the lenses are very expensive. And like Eric said, you're going to end up buying the lenses that are built for their DSLR system and the older lenses, and have to use adapters to get yourself started. So you might be buying the same lenses twice over the course of the life of the camera body.
Right.
And maybe you want to hold off, and maybe it's not the right time to do that yet. You might want the third-party lens manufacturers like Tamron and Sigma to come out with these mounts for these mirrorless lenses.
So if you're coming from a professional level DSLR like the 5D4 that I was using, you're used to it working a certain way. You're used to certain functions. You're used to having certain durability and certain reliability, which with a new system, you can't always be 100% sure that you're getting. I've had a few times in the couple of months that I've been using this that it's kind of glitched out a little bit, where all of a sudden I couldn't get the screen to go on. I had to actually one time even take the battery out, put it back in again. It's more of a computer, I feel like, than an actual camera, which is great. But if you're used to a certain system that works for you and it's reliable and durable and you know exactly what you're going to get out of it, it might not be time to switch over to something until this technology maybe emerges a little bit more and becomes, a little bit more developed and mature, where you can rely on things and you know exactly what you're going to get. Like I said, when I picked this thing up to my eye, and it's only happened a couple of times, you look through the viewfinder and you expect to see something, and it's what you expect to see isn't there. It's not happening. And it doesn't always make a difference, but sometimes it does. There's that one split second where you need to get that shot where it's not going to work. The startup time on this camera is a little bit slower than the startup time on a DSLR, which again, in most situations maybe it doesn't make a difference, but maybe it does. So if there's a certain performance that you're used to with your DSLR that you can't give up, switching to another system, it might not be time to switch.
Right, yeah, the DSLRs are mechanical. Yeah, it's a mechanical thing, where these newer cameras, there's a lot of electronics going on. Is like and things like water sealing. Is that water sealed?
I think it is. I've been shooting it in the rain, and it's working okay. So I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, but now with all that said, Sony is way ahead of everybody else with this. So Sony has professional level gear. So if you're looking to get into a mirrorless system, and you really feel like you want to do it, and you're a Nikon or Canon shooter, I mean, I don't know if you can adapt your lenses and things like that, but the Sony system is the one that everybody seems to be going to if they need that like rock solid level of performance where it's tried and true. They're a few years ahead of Nikon and Canon when it comes to mirrorless cameras.
Right. So, even this camera, the Canon R, I picked up kind of on a whim a few months ago. I liked the way the M50 was working. I liked the functionality of it, so I figured why not give the full frame version a try. And so this was kind of sort of like an in-between camera for me. So, because I was, knowing that it was the first full frame mirrorless from Canon, there's still going to be, some improvements to be made. There's going to be a lot of, things to work out in the next version. So I'm really already looking forward to the next version of this, whenever that's going to be, for whatever improvements there are. So along those lines...
Right, so this camera may not be... you may, when the next one comes out, it may have tool card slots. It may...
Right.
And you're going to end up having to swap out of it. So you bought the first generation. And that's where Nikon is, too. It's the first generation. Right. So, you might want to hold off a little bit.
Right, and wait till that next generation comes out that has all of those improvements and, upgrades and things that... maybe when they get feedback from actual photographers, they kind of, add some other features.
Right, and and maybe some of the glitches that you've had get kind of worked out.
Right. A lot of this stuff can be worked out with, firmware updates and things like that. But some of the stuff, the basic functions, you have to wait until the next version comes out.
I will say this: when I hold your camera, when I see the features on it, I am wanting a mirrorless camera. But I know for me right now, I use my DSLR all summer. I have the M50 and I did use that a little bit, but I found that all these different places that we went, the night photography that I did, and just everything that I was doing this summer, my DSLR was rock solid. I had no reason to switch. It did everything I needed it to do. So other than the fact that I want one, it really, it's not the right time for me. And it may not be for you either. If you're shooting with a DSLR that's a good camera, that's serving your purpose, maybe you don't need to spend that money right now. Maybe you get yourself that lens that you wanted instead. Put your money towards something that's going to make your images better. Maybe not just a new piece of gear just because.
Right. Yeah, if it's something that's going to actually improve your photography, like you said, like a new lens or some other, piece of gear,
tripod,
another new gadget,
maybe.
A better tripod, something like that, it's worth it more to put into that than it is right now, maybe to a camera body that's not quite ready to be your main camera body.
Okay, so these two videos have been our little take on mirrorless cameras, and Eric has made the switch, and he's happy he has. He really likes the camera, and I'm been a little bit hesitant. So we got kind of both sides of the spectrum here, and over the next, maybe in another 6 months, we'll sit down again, and who knows, maybe I'll have a new camera by then, or maybe I won't still, and we'll see where it lands, right?
Yep.
This video is my video when I first bought the M50 and why I might be switching to mirrorless. Now, I did switch to mirrorless and use the M50, but I didn't completely switch. I still use my DSLR for most of my stuff. So this video here is about why I was thinking about switching to mirrorless.
And this one here is why I actually did switch to mirrorless.
Okay, we'll see you in the next one.